Good morning, good evening, whatever. Welcome to the first edition in 2017 of airhacks TV. And it was a great 2016 year. Lots of interesting projects. It was a short year. So, and I think 2017 is going to be even better. So let's start with the content. So the year ended for me at the Munich Airport airhacks. It was well attended, and what I did in microservices, I covered the monitoring a lot. So it is actually a good choice that I will split this in the upcoming airhacks at Munich Airport. So I introduce another course about monitoring and just troubleshooting performance also for microservices, and will focus less on monitoring in the actual microservice workshops. So there will be in spring just 3 days. I will skip the first time the bootstrap on effective. I probably will redo the whole week in December again, but there is no time earlier. So it's like April is already critical. There's lots of nice conferences around the corner. There's the JAX, InfoShare, whatever. So I have to be a little bit cautious with my time. And I'm really looking forward to March to the JavaScript HTML5 workshops for Java developers. So I will use Java to explain JavaScript. Okay, so this was that. And we got 20 questions or topics. And this is the summary on my blog. And the there's not a summary. This is the actual questions from GitHub. So okay, what's interesting, the Microprofile IO became a JavaScript, an Eclipse project. So if you search for Microprofile Eclipse, there is an Eclipse project, and it was late in November. So the whole Microprofile movement is Eclipse projects, which is a very good thing. And if you look, there were a list of committers. So there was Kevin Sutter from IBM, David Blevins from Tommy. I think the Andy is also from Tommy, Ken Finnegan, John Ammond, and John Klingen, I believe. Also, these both are from Red Hat, and Ken Finnegan, I guess, as well. John Klingen is from Red Hat. Mycroft, Steve Milic is from Payara. Mark Little is the CTO, actually, I think, CTO from Red Hat, and Ian Robinson, and both of them, they are IBM. So Martin is Jack, and I will commit probably something, but I'm not in the list yet. Yeah, and there are some individuals as well. So it's interesting, sure. So what's lacking here? Oracle, but Oracle promised at the conference keynote at Java 1 that they will also participate. Okay, this is a nice news. Also, something happens in the Java EE movement, so there's a little bit of movement there. I'm really curious whether they made to the Java 1 event. So this was the very first topic, and Microprofile news. And I forgot to mention a topic from the last event. It was from the last airhacks. So I published a project called Status Test, and I got the best comment ever. It's like, I can't seem to find use case where I could be needing this. Do you care to elaborating on this next airhacks TV? And Daniel asked me, okay, what's the deal with that? So what Status Test is? So Status Test is a minimalistic war. It's actually exposed as a Docker image. And what you can do with that is you are sending in the header an status, and you get back an HTTP response with the desired status. So what I use this for is to test my HTTP JavaScript clients, whether they behave properly. So if you use XHR, this XML HTTP request, I wanted to test, all occurrences of that. So I deployed this quickly to the Docker container and tested it from via the browser, as almost like a system test from the browser. And I was able to provoke the error 500s and whatever. So this is what I used for. And because it was useful to me, I just published this to GitHub. So I hope it's clear right now. So we covered this. So the next one, there is from someone who, I guess he confused me, because I saw your audio Java list Java example from GitHub. I don't think I have such an example about a playlist and audio playlist. And Ricky wrote me an email. It was, I think, late November or early December, and asked me the question. And I say, okay, I will answer this in the next airhacks. I go, what? Next airhacks? It's like I have to wait a month. Yeah, I have really no time to provide technical support via email. But I think what Ricky would like to have is like a filter. So he only would like, or she or he only would like to see MP4, JPEG, PNGs, and GIFs in the file dialog. And what I did in the past, I used the file filter. So if you use Swing, you can use file filter, and you can and Swing is compatible with JavaFX, so you could create a Swing panel with filtering. And we did it to identify Excel files back then. And we actually I read the Excel files, and if I was able to read the file, it was shown in the file chooser. If not, it was just not visible, or so there was the right ending. So a sophisticated filter, and you can see there's this very similar functionality. So you can port that to JavaFX or just use the file dialog from Swing, and you are basically set. So, so this question, I hope, is covered. So let's see what happens here. No questions here. No questions here. Chat, quiet. Okay. So, 29 days ago, I'm working with Spring Boot, Maven, Hibernate for REST services. And he asked, are there any resources how to deal with REST service for production? So I'm not sure what production actually means, because whatever we do, it goes to production, I hope. Even if you have, your hobby projects in one day, it has to go to production. I guess what production can mean is like robustness, performance, scalability, or security. So security depends, what you would like to do, whether you need single sign-on, whatever. But the Java EE basic security covers it pretty well. And he asks me about the tutorials. So I think, how it's effective Java EE, hopefully. Yes, my effective Java EE course covers actually REST services. I hope well enough. And Java EE microservices covers JAX-REST as well. The question is, what you would like to. This is not just about JAX-REST. It's just about microservice and Java EE and where is it here? And JAX-RS. So the question is what you would like to see. And what I don't cover at all is Spring Boot. And the reason for this is because all my projects are Java 6 and 7 projects. I got one request last year about Spring Boot, and I said, okay, I have no practical experience with Spring Boot. And then, and someone else was taken. So I just rejected the offer. Because I only have theoretical knowledge with Spring Boot and not any sophisticated, I would say, project experience. Just play with that a bit. So this is what I suggest to you. And if you would like to know more about the concepts, there are great books from Stefan, I hope, Tilkov, REST. So these are German books, but I hope there are English translation as well. Hopefully. And just search for Stefan Tilkov. I hope he also does something. It should be. There are lots of articles. So this is like to understand the JAX-RS concepts better. So for me, how I see the JAX-RS movement is the following. So first, no one cares of my clients about JAX-RS, REST, or whatever. So what we would like to have is to build applications quickly and maintainable. So when the application is maintainable, in my eyes, it is maintainable. In this case, if you know the business logic well, if you understand the domain concepts, and you forget the app for 2 years, and after 2 years you you return to the projects and you still remember the concepts, you should be very quickly be able to maintain the app, introduce new features, or fix bugs. When it is possible, it is only possible in case the domain concepts or business logic immediately becomes visible to you. So the more it is obfuscated with strange patterns, the less maintainable your application becomes. So regardless whether you are using Spring Boot, Java EE, whatever, so what you should get at the end of the day, so if you know the domain concepts, and you look at the URIs, you should immediately be able to identify, what's going on there. So this is the only quality for which I'm interested in implementing JAX-RS or business services. Okay, so, and I forgot the very first topic, which is also interesting. Not also interesting, it's very interesting. So what's going on here? Nothing. And this is actually not even connected. So here, nothing here. No questions? Which way you prefer to work with Angular 2 and JAX-RS? So Angular 2 doesn't matter. As React, Angular 2, Ember or nothing, and JAX-RS. So one single project or two separate projects. So first, very quickly, what are the benefits? If you have one single project, what it means in the war, there is a JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and the backend, everything. So the main benefit is there's no issues with cores because the Angular files are loaded from the same resource as the backend. So you can work with relative URIs and everything will work out of the box. If you have two projects, there's actually two URIs. So you will have to set up cores. And what you also have to do is you will have to tell the second project where the first project lives. So or where the REST services are residing. So far, so good. So still, I think the majority of my projects were two separate projects. Why this? My observation is the following. UI tend to change a lot, and JAX-RS changes a lot in the first few weeks, and then is more stable. So we did several SPA projects with React and Angular 2 this year with Java EE backend. And in the first few weeks, we iterated like crazy in the backend, and then the backend was stable, and we iterated all the time on the front end, because we changed the UI, there were different requirements, CSS, and so forth. And therefore, it is nice in my eyes to have a decoupled UI from the backend, because you can go sure that if you redeploy UI, you won't mess up your business logic. Yeah, I hope it's clear. So I tend to have two separate projects, particularly if you have two different teams, for instance, then it's obvious. Usually you will have, front-end team and back-end team. Okay, so we covered the JavaFX stuff, Spring Boot covered, and what I encouraged the last time is that every one of you will write an email to Java 7 expert group and say, please deprecate SOAP. And I got very good answer or response to this is, it says, from my point of view, she or he actually, NG could be she, from my point of view, removing the SOAP-related specs from a Java EE would be a pity because of these following reasons. Company and partner companies, SOAP is still heavily used. So, of course, many technologies are used for B2B, business-to-business communication. So my first thing is, okay, what is on the other side of the business? If it is, it probably will only work well if both businesses are using Java or both businesses are using .NET. If you mix and match technologies, we get lots of problems with that. Migrating this to an alternative style would be a major effort with questionable gain. I don't think you have to migrate. So if it works with SOAP, I will keep SOAP. What I'm talking about is that the SOAP should not be maintained anymore and should be optional. So what optional means is that the new Java 8 or Java 9 application servers would not have SOAP as a default, but you could still, drop a access jar or whatever, and you will get, an optional SOAP support. So again, I will never migrate from SOAP to REST. Why not? Without any reasons. Because SOAP is procedural and REST is more or less object-oriented. So there is no clear path, how to migrate SOAP to REST. And furthermore, all WSDLs I saw were terrible. It's like remote procedure calls, hidden behind WSDL. And REST is more domain concepts driven, at least the last year, what I saw in projects. So it is to migrate SOAP to REST, you will have to understand the domain concepts first, and then write a decent REST API. Okay, SOAP is still the better choice than REST in certain situations. I'm not sure about this. So I'll tell you a story. What I'm doing in project right now, I'm creating a testing concept for a really sophisticated Java EE app, and it uses JAX REST API, which we are not interested in. Behind the JAX REST business API, we have functions which have to be tested. So what I implemented is remote procedure call library, which uses JAX REST to invoke functions. So what I actually modeled is functions. So functions as a resource. So in this particular case, I using remote procedure call to call whatever I like. Or the backend is a very generic interface, and it still is JAX REST behind. And even it is RESTful because my domain concept is a method and not the business. So, but I will never use SOAP for this, for instance. Yeah. So rapid client development, even for complex application by generating Java code from provided WSDL. And this is what I don't believe in this. A quick anecdote. Someone at the meeting, it was last year, asked me, what? Show us quickly hack for us a Maven project with SOAP. They know me and know I prefer code over slides. So I tried to do this until I found the right WSDL to Java Maven plugin. It took me probably 1 hour, and it downloaded half of the internet. So I was really ashamed. Like, sorry for this, and because I didn't. I actually, my last SOAP project was probably 5, 6, 7 years ago. So with REST, I would tell you, regardless what it is, and actually I will try to do it. So in a screencast, just invoke whatever third-party library just to see how easy it is. And what you can do very easily with JAX REST, you will need one-liner for a call. And this basically is. So I'm not sure about this. And of course, there are lots of GSRs and ESBs, which I don't care about because what it means, I don't care about. I care about everything. But for instance, if there is an ESB, Enterprise Service Bus, in a company, I always ask, developers, architects. Architects are a little bit harder to ask, but developers, are you happy with the decision? How productive are you? And what were the benefits of the ESBs? And then just, listening for the answers. And they were not always positive, put it in this way. And I encourage you to do the same. So just, if someone would like to sell you an ESB, just ask, how much time we will save with ESB and what is actually the whole purpose of the ESB. This is a really nice exercise. Okay, so now, someone asked me, Happy New Year, about your answer about Angular. How is it the correct way to do SEO with Angular knowing that Google Web Crawler doesn't execute JavaScript? Yeah, a hard thing, I forgot that there was, there are libraries actually. Pre-render JS. This is what I search for. There's a pre-render JS, and what the libraries do, they pre-render the Angular on the server side and output an HTML, so the SEO is better. I hope question is answered. I will put it to the chat, and Monsieur Desouls should be happy. It is painful, but this is the disadvantage having SPAs. But it's getting better and better. Okay. So this is an interesting one. So I was asked about a topic which I ignored so far. And this is Oracle. There was a nice an article. Oracle finally targets Java non-payers 6 years after blocking Sun. And so I read the article. And it is somehow, I don't know, there is nothing wrong. The assumptions are actually wrong. It is like for instance, tell you a story. As it was in 2010, and first of all, I don't think it changed a lot. So the Java SE was never free for to run on special purpose hardware. So if you had a kiosk software or something like this, you always had to pay money for Java SE. And this was for at Sun times, and nothing changed at Oracle. The change was only after Sun was bought by Oracle, and some of my clients, the first thing what happened was they get requests from Oracle whether they have licenses. So Oracle is more aggressive about getting money for the licenses, but Sun was a little bit more lazy, and Oracle is more eager. But it doesn't. But in the first place, you would have, you would have to read the license, and then pay Sun money. So this was the correct way to do. So this is actually nothing new. So this is not like after, what was it, 6 years. So it was actually from the beginning. This was what I don't get it. Why now? So this really happened in 2009 or 2010. And then the other thing is the unlock commercial features thing. I mean, what I did, I actually asked Oracle about this. At the Java 1 conference, and where is it? This was this. And if you go to unlock commercial features, I was very curious to know what does it mean. And 2 years ago, what I wrote is there's ask this after Java 1. I say, okay, hey Oracle, can I use this for development? And I say yes. And in production, no, you have to pay the prices. And the pricing was on the web. Let's see whether it's still there. Yeah, it's still there. So the link didn't even changed. So it was on my blog for 3 years. And in the article, they found it now. I mean, the question is, what's... Yeah. And but the added value of the unlock commercial feature is huge. So what you can do, in production, you can monitor without any, slow down your application with Java Mission Control. And by the way, many of my clients don't know it, and they have the license. So I encourage them, to turn it on, and then they get monitoring for free, which is really decent monitoring. And if you don't have the license and your application is critical, you have to consider whether it is worth to pay the license to have this monitoring in the first place. So, and if you read the article, everything is somehow true, but a little bit exaggerated. It's like no one downloads, the Java SE Advanced for whatever binaries and Java SE Suite or whatever. It just doesn't happen. So usually they use Java SE, the normal one. What I see what my clients are doing, or they use OpenJDK, and the problem is solved. So it's a little bit exaggerated, and in my eyes, this is a very good thing that Oracle actually would like to have money for certain features. Why not? I mean, Oracle is not an open source company, and there is not like some public domain company that they actually have to earn money, because it is they are listed on stock market, and the whole purpose of a company listed on stock market is they have to earn money as much as possible in order to satisfy the owners. So this is the whole deal of stock traded, or at least my understanding. So and from my point of view, it is okay, and what I expect that in the year 2017, more and more articles like this, because right now is very fashionable to bash Java. Why this? As you remember, in the year 2006, Java was supposed to die because Ruby on Rails, and now we have 10 years later or 11 years later, and the history repeats in software engineering every 10 years. So I would say what we will hear a lot is like a Node.js kills Java on the server, and whatever we will see this year, or Go or Swift or whatever. So I will expect more articles like this. So everything is somehow right, but widely exaggerated. And if your Java SE runs on a server, I don't think you need a special purpose license. Yeah. And if you are using OpenJDK, what I'm using, you are out of danger anyway. Okay, so this was my opinion. And and my opinion to Oracle is like, Oracle is a huge company, and they have lawyers, they are marketing people, and every department has to earn some money. and some things are looking strange from the outside, but I mean, most of the engineers are very reasonable and they think differently. So this is what always happens in large companies, not only Oracle. And one time we should write a book about large companies. You won't believe actually how funny it can be. So that's about this. And also interesting story. I was Oracle, I think in 2009, they asked me to become an ACE director. Let's see. ACE director. I forgot what ACE actually means at NetBeans. And I said, there should be somewhere, there should be a list of the ACE directors from Oracle. So I cannot find myself. So it was not because I never blog about this. And they say, yes, why not? They get better access to engineers. And last year they say, okay, but you are not promoting Oracle products a lot. Would you like to be to change the status to alumni? And I'd say, actually, I always did what I always did. I just speak about Java, never about the products. And then they canceled my my participation in as an ACE director, which is absolutely okay, because I was supposed, to submit some blogs and whatever, which I just missed. But if you think about this, what happened was the Oracle try, to get the group smaller of ACE directors, because they usually cost money. So I never got any money from Oracle. I think they paid taxi once Java 1 for me, but never the travel or whatever. I wanted to be independent. But if you think about this, don't even look at the numbers. How much money I cost them? They just canceled my participation as an ACE director. And this was not very wise move, because I could become angry, which I'm not, but I could, and this would cause a lot of harm. So I see these are large companies, and they not always move in how it's called, companies move in strange ways, right? So okay, questions here. Anonymous asked me, hi Adam, how to manage APIs URLs properly? So API manager, and so far I didn't use any API manager. And the versions, be careful with versions. I only have versions in the URI in case I can fully control the backend in the frontend. If I cannot control the frontend, there are no versions in the URI. And I don't use version managers. What I use a lot is I test a lot. So I write system tests, and I run all system tests in all versions against the newest API. That's what I do. By the way, sometimes the messages are censored. I think if you post too often, this can happen. So you have to wait a second and then, okay. Hey, Victor Sitaku says, hello from Kosovo. Hello. By the way, Brett Tucker usually listens to the show, and what Brett did, he attended the last. Let's see whether I will find it. Oh, this is Brett Tucker. So I didn't make it to Munich for any airhacks this year. So we tried to make some glue wine. It's a glowing wine, and they created an Origin Utah glowing wine in Utah. I'm really curious how it tasted. Okay, so we have that. We covered this. And we have to go back to the guests. Let's see. Where are we? This is covered. Working with CDI and OGBs. Can I have my own CMT transactions, container managed transactions? Kind of. So there is a transactional and transaction scope, two annotations. So if you search for CDI transactional, actually it would be a nice blog article. So you can have CMT without EGBs. And you have a transaction scope can hold classes or instances within a transaction. Something like thread local with transactions. So I'm currently reading a book about performance. A great book. Which is the acceptable or normal throughput in an application? When should we start to worry about performance? So don't worry a lot at the beginning. Just perform stress tests every night and you will see how well or how bad your application performs. Take the numbers, go to the client and ask whether our numbers are good enough. So this is what I'm doing. And acceptable means, for instance, if you have transactions, they should be as short as only possible. So should execute in seconds, never minutes. This is what I can tell you. I would say 10 seconds is already way too long. And if you're building web apps, it should be in milliseconds. So if you're building an e-commerce app, it is not even acceptable to have, response in 200 milliseconds. So it's really depending what you are doing. What you should, performance is not that critical, then robustness is more critical even, because if your application performs slow and you get lots of requests, they will stick somewhere in the queues. And if the application server is not configured to handle the load, what you usually can get, or what you will get, is you get problems with memory because each thread consumes some memory, and yeah, the application will not behave correctly. So I also read the article here about data transfer objects and low coupling, and the article states the following. If you have microservices, you should share nothing. So if you don't share nothing, you cannot share the DTOs. If you don't share the DTOs, you have duplicate DTOs. So, and this is very true, but in Java 7, I use a JSON object and JSON array as a DTO. And if I need domain objects, what I do is not very clean, but works surprisingly well, is I implement, do I have here? Oh, editor, very good. So let's see whether I find Java. Very good. So if I do this, class dev, so I would create a constructor with JSON object and just do something like, wait a second, so like this, name equals input get string something like name and default null. I think there's default value. So, and of course I will have the field, and then I create JSON object to JSON with return JSON create object builder, I think. Something like add name, this name, build. So I forgot the imports. It should look like this. And this works surprisingly well in recent projects. And so I'd say, hey, but there's a lot of work, but I don't have any DTOs and any mapping. So this could be an entity bean and JPA entity, and this will serialize the entity into JSON object, and this would deserialize the entity. And this was a very lean approach, particularly if you have a list of objects. I also will have to write a blog post about this, I guess, because I get the question a lot. Brett Tucker says the glowing wine was very good. So okay, the next time in airhacks TV or in the airhacks, you should do create some workflow glowing wine in a workflow for us. Okay. So airhacks alumni Daniel Vamara asked me, what is the best way to inject properties? And what I did in my blog, I wrote something like this, which injects an instance of properties from a headlands, which was dynamically configured. And this is a, I would say, sophisticated way to inject properties. What I usually do in a project, for instance, if I have to deal with Docker, first we can inject like string name, this, and then somewhere else I have class, for instance, configurator, And this class has a single methods like public string expose injection point and IP like get, I think, get member and get member. And then I get the name of the member, something like this. String field name, something like this. And then in Docker, I do return system dot, I think, like get env field name or else something like this. This is just pseudocode in Java, but or else not configured, for instance. So this is all I do. And in non-Docker projects, I use system get property. This is done. So this is the easiest possible way. And I don't think, it's a huge deal to implement this 2 lines of code over and over again. I would not create, a jar and share it. So this is what I do always, and there was no complaints. And it was completely obvious to developers why we do this and how we do this. Perfect. So, get member, get name, exactly. Victor asked me, do you use Payara in production? A lot. And do you use many performance flags or tweaks for your microservices? Not a lot. Actually, no. So all my blog and everything works as a default. There's no tweaks at all. And even worse, I use Payara in production with full monitoring on, and there's almost no overhead. Okay. What is your position to using Google JSON or other JSON serializers? Actually, in my project right now, I used Cryo. And why this? Because the input and return values are not serializable. Okay, he asked me, this way you don't need to write the dev class example you showed. What do you think? This is a different requirement, because this class which I wrote, we use that as a backend for a React JS project. So JSON won't help me a lot. Yeah. Someone asked me, Adam, you probably work with React. What do you think about the functional programming hype that JS hipsters want to popularize? I would say React, is React functional a lot? It is, but I mean, it is natural way. So you're doing the functional way, and I mean, this is like almost like streams in Java. So it's not a big difference. And the hipsters are not using React. The hipsters are using something else called Elm. So the Elm programmers say, okay, React is crap. Everything has to be functional, stateless, and type safe. And this is what, not hipsters, what this is what the JS functional gurus are using. Okay, cool. So let's do the next thing, because I'm just afraid that we don't spend the whole night with Java 7. So guests again here. Covered. I hope covered. Exactly. So this is actually duplicate. Someone sent me a tweet, a tiny thing that doesn't deserve a space on your blog. I would like to see something that can compete with Spring Boot Cloud. I don't know how to interpret this, but I get the question a little bit later is, what is it? Can Java EE compete with Spring Boot or Cloud? And you will see it in a second, because there's another project with that. Another questions about Java EE versus Spring Cloud. I will handle it in once. So what's going on here? Someone asked me, I used the implementation with the injectable configuration. It worked totally cool, but how to update this in a running server? In a running server, what you can do, you can expose the system get property as an implementation of a functional interface, inject the interface, and then you will have, on each call, it will ask the system get property. But the system get properties won't change. So I think it's impossible in Java to change. No, it's possible. System properties you can change. Environment entries is harder to change. Okay. So Happy New Year. Yeah, exactly. Happy New 2017. Completely forgot about this. Is it possible to put HTML5 application after the war has been compiled? Officially no, unofficially yes, because all application servers support so-called exploded format. So you can change whatever you like in this format and it will work. It doesn't make any sense in most of my projects because we use Docker, and this is really terrible idea to change anything inside a Docker container. Because compiling a war with HTML5 takes a lot of time. I mean, in my case, it took 1 to 2 seconds with Docker. Just go to my YouTube channel. You will see, how quick it is. So it is never a problem. Particularly, it's just HTML5 applications. There's nothing to do. It takes what it takes to zip, 1 meg of folder. So in my case, with Maven, it takes a few seconds, always. And what it takes a few seconds is a Maven build with Docker full build. Let's see, NetBeans YouTube. And this is my channel. For instance, this Happy New Year. So I created microservices a lot, and there was one screencasts about thin wars, the impact of performance on the war size. What I did, I created, where is it? This is an older one. This is the one. Java thin wars and the Docker image size. And what I did, I just created with Maven and Docker a small image and larger image and compared the performance. So this is actually what you interest. This is a half year ago. So look at this. I will post it to the chat. So we just pick the URI and put it to the chat. Yeah, and Rap Happy says put data in database or in data grid. This is what I did with Headlands. It uses Infinispan or Hazelcast. Is exactly the project from my GitHub. So yeah. Okay, so we covered this. So Oracle has proposed that Apache Software Foundations take over a NetBeans project with some Oracle engineers. Will the community still as reactive as now? I hope a little bit more. So there are really crazy NetBeans contributors, and you shouldn't underestimate the NetBeans community. There's actually a huge ecosystem of plugins writers and true NetBeans hackers. Some people are optimistic about this, but it's not the case for everyone, especially since Oracle no longer makes Java a priority. So with the Oracle Java and priority, I think it is not entirely the case. My impression is more like Oracle focuses on clouds right now, and they hope, the whole world will, leave Amazon, Microsoft Azure, and Google and go to Oracle, and so they will earn money. Let's see what happens. But I don't think they will drop Java, because everything they have is runs on Java. Also, the whole Oracle Java crowd is on Java. But this is not as priority as at the sometimes. This is true. And this is a little bit pity, because in my eyes, Java is, my eyes of course, is the very mature platform. It is perfectly suitable for microservice or whatever. And if you start with JavaScript, everything repeats again. So it's not a bad thing, but a little bit boring, to do whatever we achieved with Java, to drop everything and start over with completely new language and redo everything again. until the company loses interest, and in 20 years we do exactly the same again with different language. There is actually no additional benefits. You only have, more things to do. Should we hope for the future of NetBeans? Yes, I guess it has a future. Whether very bright or not, I don't know. But it has a future, and Oracle also uses NetBeans for the Oracle Jet, which is, by the way, interesting. It's like Oracle HTML5 framework, and the NetBeans is the official IDE, and they show NetBeans on all Oracle events. So I think this is still interesting to Oracle. But what I already told you, Oracle is a huge company, and who knows, whether all departments have, are on track, or whether one department, has a huge image for the cloud, has huge budget for the cloud, and the other department has a tiny budget for NetBeans, and they have to fight with each other. I don't know what's going on. So I think the future is still bright. And if not, we have alternatives. I mean, IntelliJ is great, and Eclipse becomes also more and more interesting. And in one day, probably Oracle will recognize that, having just, public clouds is not the right business. And then they will move back and just, it's like everything, moves back and forth a little bit. So, very interesting question. Let's see what happens in the chat. Nothing, which is somehow good, because we almost 1 hour left. We almost 1 hour discussing. So, but this is a very great question, and it goes like this. So there is lots of bulkhead pattern discussion. So which I also implemented, called Porcupine on my GitHub account, Porcupine, and the idea of protecting business services from blocking app server, introducing additional thread pools for HTTP and JDBC. Yeah. No, there is no thread pool for JDBC. There is no thread pool for HTTP, and JDBC is just a pool, not a thread pool. So in reactive style web programming, in many blog posts, the authors mentioned that JDBC drivers are always looking and always blocking, and they are not scalable with thread handling, and therefore no blocking database handling are always better. Yes. How this is non-blocking database calls the bulkhead pattern related? Can you also provide an example with NoSQL database? So right now I use Elasticsearch, which with HTTP REST interface, and it worked very well. So example is like calling REST interface. So there was nothing else to do. So the main examples like calling a GitHub REST API is the same as would you call Elasticsearch database. So so the authors are always true, but if you use, in some of my project, we are able to handle with 4 application servers the whole Europe, several thousands requests per second. And in one project, if you go here, there was an interview with a company, so 1 year ago, RPC, and they were handle 25,000 remote procedure calls per second with stock Payara, no tricks, Java EE, lots of tests, lots of tuning, but no reactive programming, nothing. And there's actually machines talking to them in real time. So I cannot. Again, I'm just a consultant. I spend my time in project like this, and not at Twitter and Facebook. So if I would reach the scale of Facebook, probably it is a bad idea to run Facebook on an application server. But none of my clients is Facebook. So whatever I do in my projects, the application servers were always better than expected. So I cannot remember a case where the problem was JDBC driver or GMS or whatever. The problem were always misunderstood transactions, locking, synchronized blocks or whatever. It was actually developer mistakes. But I cannot remember that the application server in any case was too slow. And by the way, if you know such a case, just drop me a mail or a tweet. I will be really interested what you found, because I never saw it. So everyone talks about, bad scalability of application servers, but is somehow not measurable. So what you get out of the box are several thousand transactions per second, let's say with JAX or as in a JDBC driver, and of course, and then If you have a lot of processing, CPU, whatever, then of course you get slower and slower. But this is as it should be, I guess. Okay, I will drop it to chat as well. Okay. Now we have it. Here. So reactive style, I think, is interesting for particular use cases, and no, I think none of my clients has some problems. But I could imagine if you are, you have several hundred thousands concurrent requests, then you have to implement it differently. Okay. So, and Daniel again asked me, so this is like a team created the UI, and the question is, how to communicate with the backend, how to achieve that. And what I do usually, we do the other way around. We create the backend first, and with a mock REST interfaces. And by the way, this is hopefully well described in a conference talk called Mobile First, something like this. Building mobile first services with the killer microservice platform. This is what I tried to explain in this talk. This is just a half an hour, so we just paste in the chat. So, and what I did in the talk, I just created a fake JAX-RS service. We just expose a JSON file, and then you iterate it in the front end. This is what we usually always do. And there's actually no framework necessary in the front end, because AngularJS has the HTTP which is injected. And in React, I always use this XML HTTP request, which is also in my screencast on YouTube. So go to Java EE with Angular or Java EE with React, and you will see this. Okay. 2 days ago, Monsieur Goralski, so no questions here. Osman asked me, I mean an example for NoSQL DB with JPA and Entity Manager. And this is an easy. So if you go to Morphia, this is one for, it is not exactly JPA, but almost like JPA. It looks like JPA. Where are the examples? It looks like just look at the examples here. Where's the driver? They have even asynchronous API, but there should be. So I put in the chat. Homework assignment is search for the example. It really looks like Java JPA. Then Eclipse link. I think what they have, Cassandra and MongoDB. So this is already 4 years old. They have support for MongoDB, Cassandra and stuff. So already done in chat. And lately, of course, Hibernate OGM. So they map to Infinispan, Cassandra, and MongoDB, I think. So there's multiple databases involved. And the last one, I actually forgot, this was the, there is also one which the Google App Engine is using. Okay, so I hope you have enough examples right now. Okay, so also interesting article. There's a developer blog, Spring Cloud for microservices compared to Kubernetes. So they compare Spring Cloud to Kubernetes, and they say, okay, this is like that. And the comparison is here. And it says, okay, this is Spring Cloud, this is Kubernetes, and where is Java EE? And I never start projects like this. I have to admit. So for instance, so if you start with Spring Boot, you can pick a profile and you can pick and choose whatever you like here. And I started this year, or I started several projects with startups actually. And after 10 seconds, we forgot the application server. So we just fully focus on Java EE. And if there was some bulkhead, problematic, then we wrote 2 classes and we had our bulkhead. If we need a circuit breaker, we introduce an interceptor, 1 class, and we had the interceptor. But I never mentioned that this is a bulkhead, interceptor, whatever. So what I never did in a real world projects, so you had like this, oh, you will need load balancing, what we should use. We could, of course, use Nginx and HI proxy. By the way, if you would like to see it, go to github.com and search for, I think is called Docklands. No, I think this Docklands project. And you will find here Nginx and HA proxy, Engine proxy, and Nginx with load balancing and whatever you desire, because I get a lot of questions. I implement this, but I never mentioned this at the beginning of the project because no one is interested about this at the beginning of the project really, except of course, you are a consultant and you would like, to, where is it? To impress your clients. Then you can ask, what you're using for load balancing, API gateway, or API gateway is also a nice thing. So only one case we used API gateways because we had to be able to swap commercial services in real time, and this was API gateway was the nice thing. Usually we don't use API gateways because we don't have hundreds of services as stated in the article. So if you stay to the article, so we have. See? In order to build a scalable and resilient microservices system that could grow to tens or hundreds of services. What it basically means is, if you Conway law, it means you have one team, one service. This is what we usually do. So we will have 10 of teams or hundreds of teams. So it's assume one team had 300 people. There were 300 people in the project. I'm not in projects like that. So I have to say we have the most 10 microservices, I would say. There's like 10 wars, and this is a huge project already. So it's not like we build 100 of microservices just because we can. We could, of course, but why? There should be a reason why you introduce a new microservice. And the only best practice I know, microservices don't distribute. If you can ship a monolith, just do it. And if there are benefits to introduce microservices, then there are benefits. So you split your monolith to microservices, and you are fine. So this is my personal take on that. So if you would assume that you have to have hundreds of microservices, then of course you will have to manage them somehow. So you need additional software. The question is why you have hundreds of microservices. And there's a funny story. I was at Java user group and someone asked me, how I start my microservices. And I said, how I start? I use a shell script and they're starting and then you are set. It's like, a shell script? We have hundreds of microservices. So, okay, really? So how big is your team? Yeah, 5 people. It's like, okay. And why you built this microservices? And there's no answer. It was like a deadlock. It's like, I actually don't know. I thought I was supposed to create a lot of microservices just to create microservices. So I think the year 2070 would be like back to pragmatic applications. So instead of deploying hundreds of microservices, you will have just a couple of microservices. Exactly what happened with Maven. If you remember at the beginning of Maven projects, there were projects like hundreds of Maven modules because we can. And now the reasonable project, for instance, in lots of my project, which has just one module per war and nothing else. So this is always back to pragmatism. Okay, so what my take on this is, for instance, this is complete different philosophy, but this is the only difference. If you have Spring Boot, you have the total flexibility what you can choose. You can compose your app. If you use a Java EE application server, you get everything at once. So now the question is, what is the pros and cons? So in the Spring Boot, in theory, you can just pick and choose what you like. The problem is you have to pick and choose. In Java EE case, you get everything at once, and the disadvantage of this, of course, is potentially can be slow, which is not the case if you have Docker. So just go to my YouTube channel, you will see most of the deployments, image build creations takes milliseconds, so it does not matter at all whether the application server is 100 megs, 20 megs, or 30 megs. It doesn't matter at all. What matters is the war size, and Spring Boot tends to use larger wars or larger jars, fat wars on fat jars, which I don't like a lot. I really see the advantage of having thin wars, and this is the main difference between both. And of course, also I have to admit, in my project, I've really find that the app projects perform stress tests first. So it's like a huge undertaking that they test the stress tests. If we identify bugs, and the bugs can be fixed by bulkhead, circuit breaker, whatever. And at the Java user group Hamburg in December, they told me, okay, but we really like to introduce historics because the client gets a nice dashboard, and with Java EE, you just get the numbers and they don't look that nice, and it would be nice to have dashboards, and we can charge the clients a little bit more. And I said, okay, but do you really, what happens with the dashboards and diagrams? I look at them, are they somehow, incorporated to the stress tests, or what happens with the information? And there was actually no answer. No, the client just liked the dashboards. Okay. Actually, I'm in one task force right now. It started in November and it goes to the next year. They have lots of dashboards with Elk, whatever. It's a huge distributed system, and they have so many dashboards that no one knows what's going on. So it's like, information overflow, lots of fine-grained information, and no one knows which use cases are actually successful. So compare it to compare Spring Cloud with Java EE. As you mentioned several times, what I do is I create from time to time my own hardware, my own servers. So I just pick and choose parts, which makes lots of fun. And I create my own hardware, and my blocks and stuff runs on the hardware. And this is more or less the Spring Boot approach, where you pick and choose stuff which you like. So I do it in my leisure, and I really enjoy it. But I never would, propose to my clients to create a hardware just buying stuff from Amazon and sticking together. Why? Because then you are a unique snowflake. So no one else will have your configuration. So this is fine for me, because my purpose of the whole thing is to learn new stuff. But if I would advise my clients, in 80% of all cases, I will advise you to buy stock hardware and not build your own. But still, I build my own because I enjoy it. And because I would say we are all Java developers, and we are implemented Java for years, I'm getting less and less interested in fiddling with infrastructure. I would rather rely on Payara guys or Red Hat guys to give me the application server, and I would like to focus just on the domain and not fiddle with the infrastructure. And whatever you say this, not all my clients have these problems. Like, for instance, this nested historics, Turbine or Ribbon or whatever, it is central part of application server. I have really find that someone actually looks at the numbers. They were always there, and no one is interested because no one cares about this. So if we get to know whether they ignore Netflix historics or ignore the application server, these numbers get still ignored. So I would say yes, in theory, everything is nice. In practice, in my projects, it does not matter a lot. And by the way, Prometheus is nice. You will hear about this in subsequent episodes, and even on GitHub soon. Okay. So could you compare Java environment to it, or how can fit to this or solve such problems? If you look at my YouTube channel, you will see that lots of the problems in Java EE are solved with one class or few lines of code, because everything is incorporated on the application server since 10 years. Okay, I got a nice email 2 days ago. It's like, someone would like to use TCP UDP connection from server and client, and they would like to use the concurrency utilities for Java. And the question is, can they use a resource adapter, or would it be allowed to use a singleton EJB? And first, static threads in EJB is prohibited, just in EJBs. It's not prohibited in CDI, which is ridiculous, because EJB and CDI run in the same process. So whatever can screw up your process. It could also it could do the same harm from CDI, servlets, or EJBs. So you have to know what you are doing. So using, for instance, what you could do in an EJB, you can inject, for instance, look at my Porcupine first. So if you like, GitHub, project Porcupine is already used in production in several projects. Yeah, Spring Blood. This was not on purpose. This was like so. What it does, it gets injectable executor service. So with that, you get injectable executor service, which can not start threads. It will reuse managed thread from application server, and then if you pass the thread to your socket, you get the whatever you need. But it shouldn't be like this, that your HTTP call blocks and waits until you get the connection back. So you should couple, for instance, a singleton bean which manages threads, and the threads or manages server sockets. And the server sockets with UDP, TCP, IP, or whatever, the messages could be translated to, for instance, WebSockets and pushed asynchronously to the front end. So what you should not do is that you should call from a client the backend, and the backend will block and wait for your socket to receive anything. So what it means, you should know what you are doing. You should perform a stress tests, and you should look at the stress these threads from Java Mission Control or from JVisual VM at least, and see how many threads are actually started, and whether your approach is robust enough. Okay, almost done, I hope. So I've been working with Spring Boot, and it's incredibly useful. Yes, it is. We covered it right now. You should try Java EE, or go to just use from Docklands for instance, Payara Ping or Whitefly Ping, and just compare this. I offer this technology to clients with small needs, and it's very reliable. By the way, I offered Java EE to a startup one-man show, and I will the interviews in the makings. I will publish it on my blog soon. I got also several requests from different startups who just would like to be effective or productive, and I still think that Java EE is boring but has unbeatable productivity. The entry point is better option than WordPress or PHP. This is a hard one, because I don't think Spring Boot can even compete with WordPress. So WordPress is really great, and PHP is a different story. So what I observe is at my airhacks at Munich, they are always more and more actually PHP developers, and they tell me Java is great. This is the feedback. If after the course they always say, it's incredible how good Java actually is. For me, it is really funny, because if you read blogs, it's like, hey, PHP is lightweight, in Java EE is heavyweight, whatever. But if they see what actually pragmatic Java EE actually means, they are really delighted. What are your thoughts about this product? What I already saw is Spring Boot is very cool if you have specific needs, and Java EE is good enough for 80% of cases. So, and if I don't have to fiddle with dependencies, I don't do this. So this is the only thing. So, and I don't think you have to deal with Spring Boot with XML at all. You can do it with annotations. Sure, if you're happy with Spring Boot, just use it. Just try Java EE. Go to Docklands and start one of my images, and just compare both and provide feedback. It would be really nice at the next, airhacks TV. Could even interview you or whatever about this. It could be interesting feedback. By the way, forgot one point. Something funny happened last year. Feedback from the Java user groups. So I'm talking from time to time of Java user groups, and what usually happens, I propose my talk, and people come, and usually they know that I will talk about Java EE, microservices, or whatever. But there was a Java user group Hamburg in December. There was like a blind date. No one knows that I will come. The room was packed, and then I hacked something with Java EE. And I asked what they are using. There are lots of Spring Boot guys in the audience, and as they saw what I did, they say, we actually will have to try Java EE again. So like everyone was happy with Spring Boot. No one said, oh, no, it's just crap or it's too slow, whatever. But they admitted, okay, the dependency graph is huge, and the deployment time is not always as fast as Java EE. But what I underestimated, actually, Spring Boot is very popular right now. And it was clear in the blind date because there were lots of people using Spring Boot. Nonetheless, they stay until the end of the show, and they were impressed how productive Java EE can be. And some of them say we really have to retry Java EE because they didn't know that it looks like it looks like now. Also interesting, at the last airhacks in Munich, there were participants who tried to omit EJBs and just use CDI because they believed, I heard it several times, that EJBs are starting threads in the background, which is not true at all. So this is like, there are some mysterious information in the internet about EJBs, Java EE and whatever. Be careful, and there is no secret source in Java EE, neither in Spring Boot or Spring or Drop Wizard or whatever. All the server-side technologies are similar. What can change is, I think, in Spring 5 will introduce this reactive programming where there will be non-blocking I/O with custom JDBC drivers. So this will be something new. But right now, Spring Boot and Java EE architectures are somehow similar. Okay, I will look at the chat. No questions in the chat. No questions in the Twitter. So I would say for the first show of 2017, it was a very long one, one of the longest. Thank you for the questions, and see you in February. Of course, in March in JavaScript at Munich Airport, and in April in the new courses, microservices, and of course performance monitoring and troubleshooting. Or at conferences. Lots of conferences are coming. And what I also would do, just watch my YouTube channel. I will have some ideas for new screencasts. So thank you for watching, and bye.